The Trump administration issued new guidelines late Wednesday on how public schools treat transgender students. The move reverses an Obama-era directive that allowed transgender students to use bathrooms and locker rooms matching their chosen gender identity. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid is in Washington. So, Paula, the president has long held that transgender bathroom laws should be left to the states. What does the latest guidance from the White House lay out, and what are the implications?
The implications here are whether or not schools actually get federal funding. It's fine to say that this issue should be left to the states, but the Obama administration told schools that there was a specific interpretation of federal law. As you said, that interpretation was that these students should be able to use gender-specific facilities that corresponded with their gender identity, and that they shouldn't be limited just to the gender that was specified on their birth certificate. Now, you want to be in compliance with federal law. Otherwise, you don't get your federal funding. But here, Attorney General Sessions and the Trump administration, they're saying that they do not agree with that interpretation of federal civil rights law. So they've essentially withdrawn that guidance and told schools that is not necessarily true, and you don't have to comply with that in order to get your federal money.
And during Wednesday's White House briefing, Sean Spicer said there were what he called legal and procedural problems with the Obama administration's guidance. What are those problems as the administration sees them?
They said that parents and students and teachers, administrators, that there was some confusion on how to actually implement this policy. They also said in their statement when they released this new guidance, or withdrawing the original mandate, they said that, there wasn't sufficient legal analysis to really explain the Obama administration's stance here. But the former head of the Civil Rights Division, Vanita Gupta, so the woman who helped shepherd this under the Obama administration, she released a statement saying they only issued their guidance trying to protect transgender students after receiving numerous requests from school administrators, teachers, and parents. So you have two sides just sort of giving different stories about how this was received and ultimately requested from students, teachers, and administrators.
Paula, Spicer also downplayed reports of a philosophical rift between Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos and the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and reports that Secretary Sessions or Attorney General Sessions' desire to change the guidance prevailed. What does that say about Sessions' likely influence over domestic policy?
Vlad, Attorney General Sessions is going to have an enormous influence over President Trump's domestic policy agenda. I think you saw with his executive order on immigration, the so-called travel ban, I think you saw what happens when you try to put a policy in place that does not have a solid legal foundation. It will be stopped by the courts. Now, Attorney General Sessions, he puts a strong emphasis on combating violent crime and immigration. It is clear that transgender rights, advancing this policy, that's what he calls it. He says, look, this isn't legal analysis. This is a policy analysis that the Obama administration did. That's what his belief. This is not a priority for him.
And finally, Paula, the administration moved quickly to lay out its position on transgender policy because this case is headed to the Supreme Court. How does this new guidance impact that case?
Well, it's going to make it very difficult for the student in that case to prevail. Because part of the Fourth Circuit's analysis, the reason the student won his case at the appellate court is because they looked at the fact that the federal government said that they interpreted the word sex and being protected against discrimination based on sex to include gender identity and not just what is written on your birth certificate. So now that guidance, that interpretation has been withdrawn from the federal government, that was really a pillar of that student's case. So it will be more difficult now to prevail at the high court.
Paula Reid in Washington. As always, Paula, we thank you for your analysis and your reporting.